What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Sealed Falchion weapon refine for Chroms and Lucinas, the new weapon and the refine for Nowi, Oliver and Mist. So I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on these and also some builds for these units. And as always, if you do enjoy this content, then please be sure to subscribe because I'm really close to 340,000 subscribers. Every bit of support really helps. So with that said, I hope you guys do enjoy and let us begin. Sealed Falchion weapon refine is shared by 4 units. First, it came with Chrom, but then after that, we were able to have Sealed Falchion on original Chrom, Lucina and Mass Lucina by spending 150 Divine Dues. So it pretty much means that all 4 of these units have got a new option now, which is really amazing for the fans of these units because Sealed Falchion's refine is pretty good. The base effect has now improved and now there are 2 conditions to activate the effect. It makes it much easier to trigger the primary condition because if you're not at full HP, which is going to be at the start of the turn, you could just buff up your unit and then get the primary effect, which is really good. So it means that you don't necessarily need to run Fury or push skills to activate this weapon. And this weapon does get more usage in the enemy phase as well because of this effect, because it's quite easy to buff up your unit and there are even self-buffing skills which have great synergy with this weapon. So the weapon refine is that if foe's HP is above 75%, then it gives you +5 to attack speed and defense, and it also stops the follow-up attacks of the enemies. So this refine basically gives you +10 attack speed defense and +5 resistance in total, which is absolutely amazing. Those are a lot of free stats which are just so easy to get. And it's really amazing for these older units. It also stops enemy follow-ups, which is going to be really nice for the slow Chroms, but not so much for, fast Lucinas and fast Chroms, because you can prevent the doubles anyways, but still follow-up negation can be a really nice thing if you face faster units or if you're facing units who have auto follow-up skills, so you could also stop that, and that can always be useful. Even before, I liked Sealed Falchion way more than the Falchion weapon refine because I wasn't the biggest fan of the bond refine of it, and now Sealed Falchion is definitely the better weapon in my opinion. So if you have these units fully invested, then Sealed Falchion can be a really fantastic addition to the kit of that unit because it's much easier to get stats with this weapon, and you also get the follow-up negation at the cost of losing the renewal effect from that original Falchion weapon refine. So I think most players are going to be opting to use this weapon refine. This weapon refine affects the viability of each of these 4 units differently, as you'll see in the builds later on, and I will try to explain that. So first of all, we have got Chrom, the original wielder of this weapon. Chrom is a Sword Cavalier at the end of the day, even though he has got this really nice Falchion refine. He's also a 5-star logged unit, and that means he's going to be facing against Eliwood, who's a really easy to merge plus Sword Cavalier with a busted weapon refine in Blazing Durandal. Not to mention, we also have Regin as a free-to-play unit, so she's just really amazing with her mobility. Now, Chrom's thing is that he can function in both phases essentially because of this effect. So he can tank in the enemy phase because his defenses can be pretty high, and he can also double because this weapon does give him pretty much +10 speed, but obviously he cannot really get as fast as Regin or Eliwood for that matter. And Sealed Falchion actually helps the other 3 units way more in my opinion. But in any case, if you want to run this weapon on him, then you could go with the budget build. In my opinion, if you want to invest into this weapon refine, then Rouse Speed Defense from Ferdinand is going to be a fantastic and cheap option that you could go for in 3-star, 4-star pool. And if you want to build a budget build, then Link skills are also really good. Speed Defense Link is available on Norn, so that's also an option. And then you could opt for solo skills, lull attack speed in the slot B, and also pair it up with more speed boosting skills so that he can be really fast. And in my opinion, plus speed IV is the optimal IV for him because he doesn't really have any kind of other way of doubling outside of like quicker posts in enemy phase. So investing into his speed allows him to have a good mixed phase, and he can actually reach pretty high speeds with this weapon refine and some speed boosting skills. If you want to have a non-speedy Chrom, then you could even go with double attack defense solo. He can have insanely high defense, so that could be definitely pretty amazing. And if you've already got attack speed push for, then still it's a pretty nice skill on him even with this weapon refine, as it can also activate the effect. And at last, if you have a max invested Chrom, then you could also afford to run a distant counter build. His resistance does get a bit better because of getting +5 from Sealed Falchion, and he can also get super fast at max investment with plus speed IV. Normal Lucina recently got a resplendent version, so for the people who do have FEH Pass, this weapon refine couldn't have come at a better time because they can now enjoy this weapon refine. There are also a lot of Mass Lucina users because Mass Lucina was given to us many times, so she is a very easy unit to plus and merge and doesn't really take that much grails to plus and merge. Any of the builds can be run on one or the other because these are pretty much the same units. It's just that Resplendent Lucina has got a bit extra stats. So the budget Fury Desperation can always work on a budget build if you're using it for something like Arena Assault. And you can also use her with Gale Force and Flashing Blade, so that's always an option as well, because this weapon does give you plus 10 speed, which is really good for triggering it. A standard distant counter spurn build is always going to be a really great option for the damage reduction on someone like Lucina who can get so fast, especially with the extra speed from Sealed Falchion, and the extra defense and resistance also help a lot. If you were already using Mass Lucina as the part of your arena core with the dual skill, even though dual skills are quite outdated right now, if you don't really care too much about arena, you could still use this weapon refine with a dual skill. And this can definitely help you in many matchups where they have Bullfighter or any kind of auto follow-up skill, so you could just stop that and still double yourself because you're gonna be really fast. You could also use her in Ether 8's offense. She can work out in both seasons, and Astro Season is also pretty nice, so you could use Null Follow-Up or Spurn or any kind of damage reduction skill, but personally I prefer Null Follow-Up because it allows you to break through stuff like impacts and all of these annoying effects which can stop your follow-up attacks. So I am a big fan of Null Follow-Up for that reason. Now of course you do stop the enemy follow-ups with Sealed Falchion, but taking care of the annoying impact skills and stuff like Blazing Door and Dull Eliwood is gonna be a really important thing. So that's why I like Null Follow-Up. With triple mythic setup, she can reach over 70 HP, which is perfect because you could buff her up to your heart's content as long as she doesn't get panicked by something like a Panic Staff user or by Panic Smoke. And other than that, she's not really getting panicked by a max level Panic Manner, so that's a really fantastic thing that even Mass Lucina can do, and Lucina will have even more HP with the Resplendent stats. As always, attack speed push for is always going to be an option to activate Sealed Falchion, and you could run a premium Time Pulse Gale Force build. You could also run Special Spiral with Bonfire, and with the route speed defense from Ferdinand and attack defense solo, she can get insanely high defense and she can basically retaliate back with very devastating bonfires. So it's pretty interesting how bulky Lucina can be with Sealed Falchion weapon refine. And of course, you could use the combination of Wrath and Time Pulse along with a 2-turn special like Ruptured Sky or Moonbow or even Glimmer, and basically just attack for a lot of damage every single turn and even trigger the special twice in a combat. Fury is going to be doing the recall damage to activate Sealed Falchion, and the recall damage could be pretty harmful, but she can get so bulky with the extra defense and attack defense solo that she might not really take too much damage against certain units. At last, we have got the original Chrom. So he still hasn't got his Resplendent version, which means that there is even more potential waiting for him, and he's a Lord, so he is probably gonna get it sooner or later. So Sealed Falchion weapon refine could be used on a budget with Bonfire and a steady stance quick riposte build. Again, route speed defense from Ferdinand is a really accessible skill which can activate Sealed Falchion, and it's a really nice self-buffing skill. You could also run Link skills with him. Attack defense Link can help him be really defensive and hit very hard on a budget. Attack defense Unity is a pretty nice skill on him because attack and defense are two of his highest stats, which are prone to getting chilled, and he doesn't really like debuffs on them anyways. And on a plus 10 invested Chrom, in my opinion, plus speed IV is going to be really good. Now you might ask, his weapon just prevents the follow-up of the foes anyway, so why are we increasing speed? You could just run quick riposte for him to double attack. Now there are a couple of reasons why investing into speed with Chrom can actually be beneficial. The first reason is that it gives you mixed phase utility. It could function in both phases by having high speed, so you could double in player phase as well as in the enemy phase. The second reason is that you're not really tied to quick riposte, which can get shut down by null follow-up of a faster unit. So your double attacks depend on your speed, and that is really good. The third point is that we are facing a lot of damage reduction units in FEH which depend and scale off of the speed. So if you're faster yourself, there's really not going to be much damage reduction that the opponent is going to be able to get, which can be really useful. And the fourth reason is that you can have more flexibility. You're not just restricted to enemy phase skills. You could run mixed phase skills, and as I said, you could function in mixed phase, so it just opens up more options. So for a plus and invested Chrom, plus speed IV is actually a pretty good option with Sealed Falchion because he gets plus 10 speed from this weapon. And if you have some more speed stacking skills on him, then he can actually get pretty fast and double himself in the both phases. You could also run a tier 3 stand skill like Steady Posture, along with Special Spiral for Bonfire Retaliation. And of course, you could run a distant counter build. He doesn't really have as much resistance as Lucina sadly, but he can still have a decent amount with extra help from Sealed Falchion and also Speed Rest solo. And this encounter can just allow him to destroy these dagger units and bow units, which he's not really going to be taking much damage from because of his high defense, and also take on some mages pretty easily. If you've already been using him in Arena with our dual infantry, then of course you could make use of Sudden Panic. His HP is incredibly high already, and with Sealed Falchion he gets even more HP, so you could use that to debuff pretty much all of the arena foes that you'll ever face. And that's a big help because everyone and their mom uses rally skills in Arena, so that could definitely make it much easier for your team, even though you're using a dual skill unit, but he can definitely provide that support. Nowi is one of the original dragons which a lot of people invested into back in the good old days of FEH, and she finally got a weapon refined. So Purifying Breath is basically a preferred lightning breath with its primary effect, and it's literally lightning breath with a bit of extra might because it still has the special cooldown penalty, and it has got 14 might instead of the other legendary breaths like Expiration, who are also distant counter breaths, but they do have 16 might. So I feel like they could have gone without this penalty because it's not like it would have broken the game or anything like that. We have much more insane units, and even the legendary blade tomes on Tharja and Nino don't have the special penalty anymore when they got the weapon refines. So I think this special cooldown penalty could have been avoided, along with giving her a bit of extra might, because that would have definitely helped her with her attack stat. The weapon refine is very easy to activate because it is depending on Nowi's HP stat, and it is in player's control pretty much. So you could run healer or you could run healing specials on her to make sure that she's above half health, and if she's above half health then she gets +4 to all of her stats, and she also neutralizes any penalties on herself. So getting extra stats is always going to be nice for an old Gen 1 unit like her, and neutralization of penalties is a very strong option in today's metagame because debuffs are very common with smoke skills, sabotage skills, ruse skills, shrine structures, infantry schools, and there are just so many debuffing options. So debuffs are very common. So she's definitely much more viable now, and penalty neutralization is a very powerful tool. And the extra stats are always going to be helping her, but again, she does have the issue that she's a dragon, so there are a lot of dragon effective weapons going around, and the special cooldown penalty and lower might can be a bit annoying for some Nowi users. On budget, you could just build up Nowi with Crooked Post and a stand skill, and you could also use her in Arena Assault with Triangle Adept and Swordbreaker to have her as a red check. And obviously, if you're investing into Nowi heavily, then you probably have the old build with Warding Breath or Steady Breath with Crooked Post, and that still works fine. I wouldn't say it's the best build right now or the most optimal one, but still it can work out pretty well for a max invested Nowi. And Purifying Breath can work easily with it as well, and it definitely appreciates the special acceleration from the breath skill. I wouldn't really recommend foddering off a Brave Ike for Steady Breath because Brave Ike is much more valuable than Steady Breath. I feel like Warding Breath in general is a bit better on Nowi, and Legendary Ike is already so outclassed, and he's not a very strong legendary unit in my opinion right now, so that's probably the better option. And if you want to have some modern options on her, then a tier 3 stand skill with a lull skill in slot B can be a really nice option to go for on Nowi. Because she has distant counter in her breath, she could utilize this kind of skill to get +6 to 2 of her stats, and also the guard effect, which is really amazing for a tank. And for a max invested Nowi, again, plus speed IV is gonna be a viable option because she gets extra speed from her Purifying Breath, and speed debuffs cannot really slow her down, which is absolutely amazing. Investing into plus speed IV for max investment has got a lot of benefits because you can prevent doubles from so many foes, and you can also double yourself without requiring Crooked Post, and that pretty much frees up your slot B or Sacred Seal, so you could run some other skills which can give you even extra stats. So in my opinion, plus speed IV is the most optimal IV for a max investment Nowi, and you could also run her with bonus doubler, which is a fantastic option with a self-buffing skill. Bonus doubler in general is a really nice option with any kind of unit who has got a distant counter weapon, and Nowi is no different. Because of the penalty neutralization, even if she gets panicked, she is not going to be facing the negative effects of panic, which is the penalties. I'm not saying that she's immune to panic, because she's not, but it's just that because of the penalty neutralization, the debuffs are not going to be affecting her. But she's also not going to be getting any use out of bonus doubler because she's going to be having the panic status. But because of the fact that Nowi has got pretty high HP, it is definitely pretty hard to panic ploy her or sudden ploy her in general. If you don't really care about plus speed IV, and if you already have plus attack IV, then you could definitely go with the tier 3 stand skill and have a better quicker post in Dragon's Ire, so that could also work out. And Darting Breath is the new breath skill which we have got on Fallen Ike. And if you're a really dedicated Nowi fan, then that could also work because the special acceleration does help you with Ether and also gives her extra speed with the plus speed IV. And she can also be used in Ether 8's offense. Astro Season is out of the window, don't even think about it because Thracier is there and Thracier will destroy your Nowi. So Light Season is her home basically, as it is for many units and pretty much all of the dragons. So you could run her really well in Light Season because she has the penalty neutralization, which is absolutely amazing. She doesn't really care about the shrine debuffs or any debuffs in general, and with the triple mythic setup she can have such high HP that she doesn't really care about panic manner either, so you could buff her up pretty easily, and you could use her with attack speed solo 4. This allows you to have some player phase utility, so you could go in there, attack a unit, apply the pulse smoke, and maybe take a unit out and then just sit there. So basically hit and sit strategy, which a lot of units can do. Now follow up is gonna be an absolute necessity in Light Season to deal with Bramimon, so you should have that. Pulse smoke or attack smoke can work in slot C. In the Light Season, Mila can also provide you with the Honed Dragons buff, which you could run as a Sacred Seal, and you don't really need to run a support unit specifically to soak chills, like you have to do many times for a tank, because Nowi doesn't really care about any kind of debuff, so she could be a pretty nice option for the Light Season. Oliver, the meme of Faye, gets a weapon refine finally, so it's a pretty restrictive and situational weapon refine, but it is most definitely very fun and quite a unique and funny refine. So against all kinds of non-beast foes, Oliver gets easy +5 attack and resistance, and he can also restore 7 HP to himself after the combat. So the consistent healing is extremely good for the longevity because Oliver is typically used as a tank because of his stats, so the healing is much appreciated. He also has a very nice lore inspired weapon refine for him because it only works with 3 units in the game. Yes, only 3, which are Herons, Leon, Raisin, and Raphael. Raisin being the most easily accessible unit because he's in the 3-star 4-star pool, and if you use Herons with him, then he can teleport to them from anywhere he's on the map, which is absolutely crazy. So his teleport range is global, which not a lot of units have. Can make up for some pretty funny plays. And if he's within 3 spaces of a Heron, then he can also get +5 attack and resistance. So all in all, with correct allies, you could have +10 attack and resistance on Oliver, which is really amazing for nuking because he can actually hit pretty hard, and also for tanking a lot of the other mages because his resistance can be really high, and it's already pretty nice as it is. So this weapon refine is basically a meme for him, because only 3 allies can be used with him to activate the weapon refinery, but if you do use those Herons, then you could certainly make some beautiful plays. On a budget, Oliver can be used in Arena Assault with Sword Breaker, and as I said, with this new weapon, he can definitely hit pretty hard, so Mirror Strike and Death Blow are pretty nice on budget. And because of Tome of Favors, he can basically function in both phases because he can have so much extra attack, and the self-healing basically nullifies the recall damage of a push skill. So you could run attack res push 4, which is going to be active in both phases, and he can also run lull attack resistance. Joint drive attack is going to be a pretty nice thing if there is a Heron within 2 spaces of him, so he can get even more attack, and quicker post is going to be required to double in the enemy phase. A lot of people have built him up as a close counter tank, and he can still work with that because he can have a lot of attack and resistance. Sadly, he doesn't really get any defense from his weapon, so he could run Sturdy Stand Sacred Seal. We could invest heavily into him. If we ever get attack resistance unity, then that could be a really good option on him because those are two of his most important stats. You could also run him with Bracing Stance 3 and Mystic Boost. Mystic Boost can stack up with the healing of Tome of Favors, which can definitely help you with a lot of self-sufficiency, and Bracing Stance can basically give you really nice bulk for both defenses. He could also be used in Aether Raid's defense if you're using Raisin, Leon, or Raphael. Many people use Raisin as their dancer, and even if Oliver is a corner unit, he can just teleport to Raisin and nuke something, and he can definitely nuke pretty hard because he's got mirror impact and he gets a lot of attack and resistance from his weapon. Pulsing him down can be a bit hard because of his high HP, so that's why Time Pulse and Quick and Pulse can make it easy. So hopefully a frontline unit like Selif or Brave Ike with high HP can infantry pulse him so that he could have a pre-charged iceberg. He could also be used in Aether Raid's offense. He works in both Light and Astro Season, and in the Astro Season he can work out, but there are a few things you have to keep in mind. The first thing is that you're going to be facing Thrusier. Despite his high resistance, Oliver is always going to get doubled by Thrusier, and a standard Thrusier with killing intent Flashing Blade is going to be triggering Moonbow, and Moonbow is going to be scaling off based off your high resistance, so that can definitely hurt you. So that's why a tier 3 stance skill like Mirror Stance can definitely help you tank Thrusier, and from what I've calced, this Oliver can even survive and kill a plus 10 merge Thrusier at max investment. So that's why you use Glimmer, because you are getting self-sufficiency from Tome of Favors, and against most of the mages who are not green, he's really not going to be taking much damage because his resistance is just sky high, and lull attack resistance can just shut down any kind of visible buffs that they might have. And Pulse Smoke is going to be necessary if you're going to be facing a pre-charged special Thrusier, because you need to get rid of that special on her, otherwise she can still kill you because Thrusier is still a very powerful unit. He could also be used in the Light Season where he can chill a bit because he doesn't have to face Thrusier, and he could definitely do a lot of damage with his extremely high attack stat. Attack Rest solo can work, and it can give him more player phase usage, so he can basically go ahead and snipe a unit after the bolt tower damage, and he does some massive damage, so that is not going to be hard. You could also run him with Distant Defense 4 and Special Spiral. So the idea is to basically have Iceberg getting retaliated every time he gets attacked, and Iceberg is going to be doing massive damage. He already has self-sufficiency from his weapon, and with this high resistance, he's definitely not going to be taking much damage from the mages. Oliver can definitely do some work in Aether Raid's offense because he is going to be having really high resistance, and mostly you're going to be facing range units and mages in Aether Raids, so he can definitely take care of them, and it's not really all that hard to have a Raisin behind him to just activate his weapon, and the healing that the Herons can provide is also going to be amazing for Aether Raids in general. For most of the players, Mist used to be a nightmare of a pity breaker unit in the colorless pool, because back then she was present in the normal summoning pool and she was a 5-star unit, so it was really hard when you got a 5-star Mist because she didn't really have any worthwhile skills and her stat spread was pretty underwhelming. She didn't really have very high attack or speed or defense. The main saving grace of her was that she had a bit high resistance, and that's pretty much it. So it's really hard to salvage a unit like that who does have a pretty underwhelming stat spread, but this Weapon Refine is actually a fantastic thing because it doesn't really utilize any kind of stats of her. It just functions as a support weapon, and that is the best thing to salvage Mist because she can be a really nice support unit with this weapon, and it does have Dazzling Staff built into it. So at start of turn, she can inflict -7 attack and speed debuff and panic on foes within 4 spaces who are closest to her. So if there are multiple foes who have the same distance to Mist, then they all will get affected, but the foes who might be farther away will not get affected. So if you have 2 enemies who are 1 space away and 2 enemies who are 3 spaces away, then you're only going to be affecting the enemies who are going to be 1 space away, if that makes any kind of sense. So she cannot really debuff every single foe. Then she can attack, and she does have attack smoke, speed smoke, and panic smoke built into her weapon, and that is really amazing. And she already has Dazzling Staff built into this weapon, so it does allow you to easily apply these debuffs on the foes. So she can function as a really amazing utility unit in Arena Assault, and in many game modes, even in Rooker Sieges, she can be pretty decent. So overall, a really nice weapon refine for her, which has got a lot of effects built into it, and she can easily use these effects despite her stats and support your allies. As I said, she could be a really good unit in Arena Assault. It doesn't really matter what kind of IV spread you got her for. You could always just have this weapon refined and use her as a support unit, and she can make your life much easier in Arena Assault because the debuffs are going to be really helping you, as well as the panic. This panic is really good because it isn't really tied to the HP stat like Panic Ploy or Sudden Panic. So this is really amazing, and she doesn't even have to initiate combat to spread panic to the closest foes, which is going to be absolutely amazing. So you could just run her with Attack Res Push 4 and Double Savage Blow, and this can allow her to spread those debuffs and the splash damage. If you want to invest a bit more into her, then of course Wrathful Staff is going to be good, and a Push 4 skill can also be used if you want to use her more to attack. And finally, for the dedicated Mist fans, you could definitely go with Attack Speed Push 4 and definitely make her pretty speedy. Keep in mind that she does have the speed debuff on foes who are closest to her within 4 spaces, so she could definitely initiate combat on those debuffed units and easily double them, and then debuff even more foes and get the speed smoke to double them. So that can always work out, and Speedy Mist is possible at high merges, but there are really not many people who are going to be going for this, but still it's an option nonetheless. Overall, all of these weapon refines are really good. I cannot really say that any of these weapon refines are really bad, like they are many times in many of the batches. I mean, you could say that Oliver's could be because it is really restrictive and situational, but come on, it's such a funny weapon refine for a meme unit, and it's so in character that you cannot really get too mad about it. So overall, a really nice weapon refine repatch. None of these weapon refines are game breaking or underwhelming, so they are pretty balanced overall, and I definitely like a patch like this where all of these units can have their viability increased. So let me know in the comments which one of these weapon refines was your favorite and which one you're going to be refining. And I want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support. If you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Oliver's weapon refine without Herons. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.